Long before the sound of victory echoed across the Bac Dang River, before foreign armies trembled at the name of Ngô Quyền, there was only a quiet village hidden beneath the bamboo skies of ancient Vietnam. That village was called Đuong Lam, a sacred land wrapped in drifting morning mist, surrounded by endless rice fields, winding rivers, ancient banyan trees, and old stone roads worn smooth by generations long forgotten. Every sunrise painted the valley in soft gold, while fishermen guided small wooden boats through calm waters reflecting the heavens above. Children laughed beside narrow dirt paths while distant temple bells echoed gently across the hills. Smoke rose peacefully from wooden homes as villagers began another day beneath the beauty of the Vietnamese countryside. To travelers passing through, Đuong Lam seemed untouched by suffering, a peaceful corner of the world blessed by the spirits of heaven and earth. But beneath that quiet beauty, fear had lived inside the hearts of the people for many years. The armies of the Nam Han dynasty ruled from the north with greed and cruelty. Heavy taxes stole food from starving farmers before winter even arrived. Armed soldiers marched through villages demanding obedience, while frightened families lowered their heads in silence. Mothers secretly hid bowls of rice beneath the floorboards to keep their children alive. Old men sat beside fading fires remembering stories of a freer homeland that now felt impossibly distant. Some villages that resisted northern rule were burned until nothing remained but smoke drifting over blackened rice fields. Every family carried grief. Every child grew up hearing whispers of war and loss. Yet despite the suffering, the spirit of the Vietnamese people refused to disappear. Around temple fires during cold nights, elders quietly spoke ancient prophecies about a hero who would one day rise from the sacred land of Đuong Lam and restore dignity to the nation. It was during those troubled years that Ngô Quyền was born into the respected family of a powerful village leader. From the moment the child first opened his eyes, many believed something unusual surrounded him. His gaze was calm, observant, and strangely fearless even as an infant. Village elders whispered among themselves whenever they saw the boy standing silently beside the riverbank watching distant mountains beneath gathering storms. While other children chased birds across flooded rice fields or laughed beside bamboo groves, young Ngô Quyền often wandered alone through forests listening to the wind moving across the hills. Some villagers believed the child carried the spirit of an ancient warrior reborn. Others simply felt something heavy and mysterious hidden behind his silence. As years passed, those whispers only became stronger. Ngô Quyền grew taller, stronger, and more disciplined than anyone expected. Before dawn, while cold mist still covered the roads of Đuong Lam, he trained beneath bamboo groves swinging heavy wooden staffs until his hands bled. He practiced swordsmanship beside muddy rivers while rain poured from dark skies. He climbed dangerous mountain cliffs during violent storms and rode horses through narrow forest trails long after exhaustion should have broken his spirit. Older warriors watched the young man with growing admiration and disbelief. Yet what truly separated Ngô Quyền from others was not merely strength. It was discipline. While other young men rested after training or gathered together laughing beside fires, Ngô Quyền returned home alone each night and studied military strategy beneath the dim light of a flickering oil lamp. Ancient battle scrolls covered the wooden table before him. Maps of rivers, mountains, forests, and ancient battlefields filled the room while thunder rolled outside across the valley. He studied stories of past rebellions and fallen kingdoms late into the night while cold rain struck the wooden roof above him. He understood something many warriors failed to realize. Courage alone could never defeat a stronger enemy. Victory required patience, intelligence, preparation, and the ability to unite people beneath one vision. Sometimes he would spend hours staring silently at river maps, imagining how water itself could become a weapon against invading armies. Inside the respected home of Ngô Quyền family, long emotional, conversations unfolded beside warm candlelight. His father often spoke about justice, loyalty, sacrifice, and the responsibility of protecting innocent people during times of suffering. Strength means nothing, his father once told him quietly, if it exists only to protect yourself. Those words stayed inside Ngô Quyền heart for the rest of his life. Outside their wooden walls, however, The land continued sinking deeper into misery beneath foreign rule. Namhan officials traveled from village to village collecting impossible taxes, while armed soldiers threatened helpless farmers with violence and death. Entire families lost their harvests before winter arrived. Villages that resisted were burned beneath smoke and fire. One evening, after returning from martial training beside the river, Ngô Quyền encountered a grieving family carrying the body of a farmer beaten to death for failing to pay tribute. The widow walked silently through the muddy road while her children cried helplessly beside her. Rain began falling softly from the darkening sky as frightened villagers lowered their heads in silence. Ngô Quyền stood motionless watching the tragedy unfold before him. The image burned itself into his soul forever. That night, storm clouds covered the mountains while thunder shook the valley. Ngô Quyền sat alone beside an oil lamp staring silently at military scrolls spread across the wooden table. His father entered quietly and watched him without speaking for several moments. The older man realized the child he once guided through rice fields had already become a man carrying the burden of history upon his shoulders. "You carry too much sorrow in your heart," his father finally said softly. Ngô Quyền slowly raised his eyes. "How can I ignore the suffering outside these walls?" he answered quietly. "Every village waits for someone strong enough to protect them." The room fell silent except for rain striking the roof. Then his father stepped closer and placed a hand upon his shoulder. "Perhaps heaven has already chosen your path." The years passed, and stories about the warrior from Đuong Lâm spread across nearby regions. Travelers spoke about his intelligence, calm authority, and discipline. Secret military gatherings began taking place inside hidden halls illuminated by torchlight, where local leaders quietly discussed rebellion against northern rule. During those meetings, Ngô Quyền rarely spoke first. He listened carefully while observing the fears, ambitions, and weaknesses of powerful men. But whenever he finally offered his thoughts, the room often fell silent. His understanding of river warfare, terrain, military organization, and unity impressed even experienced commanders. Meanwhile, the political situation across the land grew more dangerous with every passing season. Rebellions rose and fell. Villages burned beneath endless conflict. Markets collapsed. Families fled into forests carrying children and whatever little food remained. Yet despite the chaos, the dream of freedom refused to die. Ngô Quyền continued strengthening himself while gathering loyal companions around him. Together they trained beside raging rivers and storm-filled battlefields, practicing combat formations and discussing the future of their homeland around nighttime campfires. Old veterans shared stories about past uprisings while flames illuminated determined faces beneath the dark sky. Every hardship only strengthened Ngô Quyền resolve. Then one spring morning, travelers arrived in Đuong Lâm, bringing stories about a powerful resistance leader rising in Ichao, a respected commander named Duong Din Ne who was secretly building an army against the Namhan dynasty. The moment Ngô Quyền heard that name, something awakened inside him. For many nights afterward, he stood beside the river watching moonlight reflect across endless water while thinking about his homeland and the future waiting beyond Đuong Lâm. Deep inside, he already knew his destiny could no longer remain tied only to the peaceful village of his birth. Heroes were not born merely to protect one corner of the world. They were born to answer the suffering of an entire nation. One evening beneath a burning red sunset, Ngô Quyền climbed the hill overlooking Đuong Lâm for what would become one of the final times before his departure. Below him, smoke drifted peacefully from wooden homes while children laughed beside narrow village roads and golden light reflected across rivers flowing through the valley. It was beautiful. It was home. And it was worth fighting for. That night, very few words were spoken inside the family house. His father silently watched while Ngô Quyền fastened his sword and prepared his horse beneath flickering candlelight. Both men understood what was coming. Before dawn, cold mist drifted slowly across the rice fields as villagers quietly gathered beside the roads to watch him leave. Some bowed respectfully, while others simply stared in silence, sensing they were witnessing the beginning of something far greater than themselves. Ngô Quyền mounted his horse and turned one final time toward Đuong Lâm. For a brief moment, memories of childhood rivers, bamboo forests, and peaceful evenings returned to his mind. Then slowly, without fear or hesitation, he rode toward the distant horizon where destiny awaited him. Behind him remained the sacred land that had forged his spirit. Ahead of him waited war, sacrifice, betrayal, glory, and the future of Vietnam itself. And from that moment forward, the journey of one of the greatest heroes in Vietnamese history truly began.